Right, g'day everyone again. I think we're up to week 4 of Building the Church as a Family podcast, covering your book.
Thanks, James. I really appreciate it. This is helping me rethink through things.
Yeah.
As well.
No, it's been really good, and I think we've got a pretty juicy topic today.
Well, I think this is the centerpiece of it all. Really.
Yeah. And I think this has huge implications for our theology, but then also for our practice.
Yes.
And so I think what we might do is, how about we start off by getting some maybe understanding some terms, before we sort of elaborate on them.
Yeah.
So this week is contractual versus covenantal, and we're talking about relationships and how we, I guess, relate to one another. So do you want to maybe just kick us off by saying, what is a contractual relationship? What does that look like? So don't delve too deep into it, but just so we can understand what you mean by it.
I want you to stop me and ask and try, so I'm not clarifying. Okay. So I think everybody is contractual. Yeah. Okay, so your business contractual, the way we how we enter into any relationships contractual. What I mean by that is that it's self-centered versus other-centered.
Okay.
So you're engaging with the person because you need something from them.
Okay.
Or you want something from them. Or you want an outcome that's self-centered. So it's not about them, it's about you, actually.
Yeah.
So huge implications for this when you really start to think about all your life. So you go to work. Why'd you go to work? Because you get paid. What happens if you didn't get paid?
Yeah.
I wouldn't go to work.
Yeah.
That's contractual.
Yeah.
I go to this person's house. Why do you go to their house? Oh, because they've got a boat. They take me fishing. If they didn't have a boat, take fishing out, I wouldn't go to their house. See, and we do it all the time. There's heaps of things. Why are you married? No, because she's sexy. What happens when she gets fat? I don't know. I don't know if I want to.
Yeah. And
this is the thing. And so when we do life like it, we realize that culturally, because we spoke about kingdom culture in the last week, this is the culture it's like a fallen culture. It's a dysfunctional culture that's actually hurting each other all the time. Whereas, so I must have jumped into the covenantal side.
So, all right. So let's just pause there, because I think you've done it well. So contractual is, like you said, it's me self-centered.
Self-centered.
What can I get out of this? And I'm in this relationship with you because I get something from you.
Yeah.
Whether you make me feel good or I get money, in payment for the job. There's something in it for me. Yeah. Okay. I can definitely see how we've all got relationships like that in our life. So on the flip side, what do you mean by covenantal relationships?
So covenantal is, I lay my life down for you, really. It's like, I remember, years ago, went on this marriage weekend. I might have been, maybe I was 23 or something. Debs and I went on this marriage retreat. Yeah. And this guy put 2 dots on the board. He said, this is you, this is your wife. And he drew an arrow. He said, you do everything for your wife, but actually it's all about you. He drew the arrow around the wife and back.
Is this like the, you buy your wife a drill for her birthday,
Well, you take her out for dinner. I mean, there's lots of things, but you don't consciously do that. I mean, I wouldn't think anyone's thinking, because you think about it and go, well, that's not very nice. Yeah. So you wouldn't consciously necessarily do that, but it's a fallen way of doing life. So covenantal is it's not self-centered, it's others-centered. And so there's a bunch of things that need to happen in your own world for you to really, truly live that way. And
can you describe what it looks like to be others-centered before we get to how to get there? Let's just quickly touch on, what it could look like. Obviously, Jesus was quite other-centered.
Oh, he was totally. The Joy said before him. I mean, his whole life was like it. So, look, just before I go, the flip side is that others are, just in case people think, well, hang on a second, what about me? Yeah. And if you want to do what about me, that's self-centered. But let's just think about it. If everybody's living like this with you in a community that's a loving community, you're getting all your needs met, really. Yeah. Because you're known. You're seen. Yeah. So people are noticing what's going on.
This is if people are other-centered.
Or other-centered around you.
And they're loving you no matter what. Therefore, like the fruit of that is that people are known and loved. Like that's they feel.
So you find folk will come into let's say a Christian community. I mean, it can be any community, it can be a footy club or whatever, but it coming in where people are other centered, and they will draw off that, and then they get angry when they don't get what they need, but because others, and that's where you get people that are being abused, and all that kind of thing in community. So there's boundaries to all of this, and the boundaries are really just looking at people, you know, and that's the being known part. So you're thinking, well, hang on, man, I gave you $1,000 last week. What's going on? You know, you know what I mean? It's why. So there's wisdom applied to this, because the goal actually at the end of the day is to get everybody to live in a covenantal way. So what's covenantal? Covenantal is, you know, so you and I choose to love you regardless of what your choices are, whatever your free choices, regardless of how you respond to me. I'm choose to stay. So we talked about it earlier last week, being connected. So if I'm connected to you and my pursuit is to be connected, it kind of flows into this way of doing covenantal life. So I'm loving you because I choose to. You know, and obviously there's Jesus chose 12 people, so you kind of you don't want to be trying to deal with 300 people. You figure out. You just ask the Lord about that. You know,
and I think this is where, like, building church as a family, like the family concept comes in, because when you're a mum and dad, let's just say, I think most mum and dads, and I know there's lots of examples as well where this is not the case, but there's still like that whole thing where a mum and a dad, you know, when they have a brand new baby, the baby can't return love or anything when they're a baby. And it's like that sort of concept that, here, I'm going to feed you, I'm going to love you, I'm going to care for you.
Correct.
Like, my world changes because I just love this baby.
That's right.
Now, obviously, as they get older, you get into all the other reasons why, you know, I had a baby to make me feel loved, or because I felt incomplete, or all that sort of thing.
Could be.
But at the core, like really at the core, especially when they're young, as a parent, you're caring for that baby because of, like, you have that covenantal relationship that is, I mean, it's a forever bond.
Yeah, I think what you touched on is something I say to folk, is that just living in community and having children, because we're lazy, right? We don't do anything unless we have to, basically. So just living in community and having children, as you know, you get boy meets girl, have children, facilitates a lot of this. If you're aware of the seasons you're in. So loving a child that can't respond or do anything for you is a covenantal thing, and learning that and thinking, okay, God, and then how do you respond to that? Some people hate it. But if you understand it kind of grows you as a person to understand how the Lord, how we work, how we best work in a kingdom way.
So I guess, all right. So let me just ask you one question here. What if we're looking at like relationships that, let's just say that you have with your wife, or I have with, say, workmates or something. Can you just give me maybe one or two practical expressions of what that could look like to live covenantally? Okay. Like what practically, what could that look like?
So
just to flesh this out.
Depending on your environment, right? So if you take like you and your wife, well then there's obviously always a mixture of things that. So contractual is really you getting something in return. That's why you're doing it. Okay, so the thing about that's self-centered. But with you living with your wife, there can be a mixture for some folk who've gone into a marriage. You're thinking, man, I am very contractual. I buy flowers because, you know, I want to say. I mean, if you're living like that, it's the journey of. So I think that's why we covered last week. We talked about the journey of salvation. It's not like I'm doing it wrong and now I've got to do it covenantally. That if you've got that going on, it's very hard, because then you mask up again, and because you know you're supposed to be covenantal and not contractual. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's important to flag that and go, okay, so the journey now is for me to ultimately end up being more connected. So if you think of connection, more connected, then to be connected, you'll never be self-centered. See, being connected is, you're thinking about the person. So, you know, you come to my house, I know you don't have coffee, so I always offer you water. You know, like you know, or you came to my house. Well, if Deb came to your house, you'd know she doesn't eat meat, so you're going to give her. You know, I think that's knowing and feeling. So you're other centered. You're building towards that. That's so great. I think people, because I remember a leader in the city who saying to me, well, we only covenantal really with one person, that's your wife. And I go, well, yeah, you deeply covenanted with her, and you should be. But I think the journey of covenantal is as people are responding to you, because also their response. You see, they've got free choice in the matter.
Yeah.
So either they're responding in a way that's conducive to pursuing that connection, which then fuels the covenantal journey. And so to go back to the business, the work environment says you'll dress like this, you'll behave like this is the culture of the business, whoever sets it up. And so to try and do covenantal, you can do covenantal with people in your attitude. You know, you don't steal the stationery, you don't take sick days when you don't need them. You know, all the things that people. So you're honouring the business, honouring the management. That's a covenantal way. It's not self-centered, but you, by and large, most of your day will be contractual. Yeah, that's just the reality of it. You know.
And I think like you said, I think, but relationally we can act covenantally. And so the couple of things that came to mind for me is, you know, as a boss, where I've worked over the last few years and whatnot, I've had people come to me, like my team, because I've got such a strong relationship with them. They come to me and say, hey, James, I'm thinking of moving on, or I'm thinking of this, and I'm thinking of that, and they're expecting to get in trouble because they're in the middle of a project, or, you know, we've been talking about vision or whatever it might be. And for me to be covenantal, it's other-centered. So I'm like, hey, that actually sounds like an awesome idea for you. Like, can I be your referee? You know, I'd love to give you a reference. Can I, you know, before you do that, do you want me to help you learn a couple of extra skills so that when you apply for a job eventually doing that different type of thing, you know, you've got some more experience that you can talk about. Like, that's other-centered, you know.
We see, you're touching on something, James. I think let's call it a narrative. The broader narrative. So just climbing a helicopter kind of thing. What are we trying to do? So I think people, no, we're trying to make money. Well, really? Really trying to make money? Is that what it's about? Are we really trying to whatever? We're trying to have kids, or we're trying to be amazing, or whatever. The thing is this: if you lining yourself to the kingdom way, there's, when you're in your future, God's there, right? Whatever you need, God's there to provide it. That's part of the journey of. That's what I believe people being generous is like. Because if you're not being generous, you live. It's all about self-centered. I live for myself. So this narrative's quite broad. And so if you think like what you've just suggested there as a boss, just saying, well, how can I help you be more successful as a person? Because you've got that in your I guess in your arsenal, if you like, or you've got it in your heart. Like, I'm a boss. I get to be a boss. My gosh, and I get to steward this space. I get to run a business. I get to steward the space. So it's not about me. I'm not self-centered. So it flows into every area of life. This, you see.
The other one I was thinking of was with your kids. And we have this one, like when the kids might come home from school, slam the door or say something rude and all that. And now, if I'm contractual, I want them to toe the family line. Hey, how dare you speak to your mother or me like that? You know. However, when it's covenantal, again, other-centered, it's, I'm not going to take offense. Actually, son, what happened today?
What's going on?
What's actually going on? Like, what? So it's like I'm ignoring what he's said to me and saying, actually, no, there's something else going on inside his heart. Let's get to the bottom of it. Because I care about him. I want to be connected with him, and I want him to have life in all its fullness. And so I think it feels like Paul said, you know, it's dying to self.
I think that's right. I mean, look, the thing is that obviously there's framework which people need to understand. So so in the case of children, you train them the way they should go. So there's no like it's kind of difficult, different seasons, right?
That's right.
But certainly when in your case, you know, Jed's 15 and he's slamming the door and he's shouting at Sarah, you'll be say, hey buddy, hang on. What's going on, man? You know, because obviously it's not behavior.
That's right.
No, acceptable behavior.
That's right.
But there's a reason for him responding that. And so you're not being self-centered and serious, because as parents do, they have to suck it up all the time. You suck it up and you go, okay, what's going on? Because you're not raising a child, you're raising a parent. That's really, when you start to see, I'm raising a parent, And they're going to raise their kids like that.
Yeah.
Where we spoke last week, where, Paul selects those 4 people. How are we going on time?
We're good. We're good. Yeah.
You select those 4 different categories of people to be elders, and what that meant.
Yes.
And so, I mean, at the end of the day, it's passing on this culture, this way of doing life.
Yeah. So for those who may not have heard that bit, in one of the previous episodes, we went over the 4 different words that are used in the New Testament for like elders and leaders, etc. in the church.
Titus and Timothy letters.
The Titus and Timothy letters, and they're all like grandparenting. It's all grandparenting type of language. Yeah. So this is sounding good. So I think in the church, what does this look like? What does it look like to have covenantal relationships in the church? Because I mean, so if I start off, we could easily talk about, most churches are quite contractual. So for me, born in the Salvation Army, of thing, we had a list of doctrines, and therefore this is how I will behave. And if we didn't toe the line, you're out. Now that's very contractual. What does it now look like to be covenantal?
So I kind of got to give credit where it's due. So Peter McHugh, if you ever get to watch this, thank you for this. But him and I had these discussions, and he came up with it. So this is kind of we put this in Friends First. We said, so you belong. So it's not about what you believe, how you perform, zero, you belong. That's the first thing. And you need to get that in you. I belong. What do you mean I can be myself completely and whatever? Yes, you belong. Okay.
Yeah, great.
Then you get to what you believe. So that's been tweaked. The only way you're going to get your belief system, which is culture, being tweaked is by vulnerability, openness, letting people speak into your life, doing life with people, knowing that you're going to stay connected with them forever, so you're not giving people pieces of your mind and so on. Because behavior is always an echo of belief. Yeah. You're always just behaving by what's really in the heart. Jesus said that. So it doesn't matter what goes into the mouth, it's what goes into the heart. What are you looking at? What are you dwelling on? What you're aware of? So when you talk about covenantal and in churches, because we can address churches, I like to think of this as being just humanity. I mean, I think we can talk about... So the methodology of a church depends on what construct there is. Yeah. So, people just administrate what people set up before. So the Salvation Army, go back 100 years, very different to what it is now.
That's right.
Go back in the Pentecostal early 1904, Daddy Seymour, Susan Street, very different to what it is now. Totally. So people administrate things, they're bringing things through, but they kind of lose the point. All methodology is just a framework or scaffold to facilitate what? To facilitate a transformation of the human heart. Yeah. Whereas we can grow into our grandparenting years and see our grandkids mimicking what we put into our children, which is the way of the kingdom. Yeah. So how does that happen? It happens through covenantal relationships. It's other-centered. Yeah. It's not me-centered. Because me-centered means you're pulling on people and hurting them. Yeah. So put that back into the context of the church. Now we administrate this thing, starts off well, and the movement goes on. Now we got this administrative people that are very clever, because they're linear and they can work it all out, and so I think right in the beginning, in the introduction, a lot of bodies buried in those systems, right? Yeah. So now what are we doing? Well, we've got a vision statement, so we're trying to achieve that. We want to pay off a building, we want to have a school, we want to have whatever. So now we manipulate people. I don't want to use that word strongly, but I think just in my experiences, and I've done it, you're manipulating people to achieve your results. So it's self-centered, or it's the
vision that you have, or the plans that you want to see come to pass.
It's about you after all. Yeah. So then you go, well, how do we do it otherwise? If it's all everybody come, then they're just a mess, and then they're just pillaging what we're trying to do, and we never pay off our building, and I understand that, and I think I've kind of gone through those thought processes, and that's a big topic. Yeah. But that's why I like the simple thing of family. Yeah. Because family is like you don't get some stranger off the street comes and sleeps in your bedroom and eats all your food and helps himself to the fridge. You go like, hey, hang on, mate, you're not part of the family. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of is metaphoric in some way, because not just mum and dad and kids. It's much broader than that. Jesus said, you know,
it's like the grandparents and the cousins and the aunties, the uncles. It's the community.
It's a community that's family, and we lose that. I mean, certain cultures we go to, they understand. So imagine if the church did like that, because now suddenly, because that's the fear of leaders if they ever watch this. Leaders thinking, "Oh, Gary, you got nuts. We're going to lose it." No, it's because you can't shift it like that. You actually have to educate people. Listen, we got to love each other, man.
Yeah,
we got to be others centered for this to work. Because if everybody wasn't others centered, you'd have depletion of this resource, right?
Yeah,
whatever it is.
Yeah, no, I love it, and I think that's a good place to sort of wrap it up, because I think we've really nailed that other-centered piece, and what that then means for the church. And in the next episode, we're going to be looking at the gospel message, what that means, and that's when we actually begin to see that God is a covenantal God, which is just absolutely fantastic news. So every episode is just building upon each other, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, just a sneak preview on that.
Yeah.
And this is why I wrote those chapters I did, because you've got, and this is a good reminder, and we can do it again when we chat next week, but you've got to think about it. Okay, so free choice is absolutely important, because you haven't got free choice, then you're not an individual to choose your destiny. Yeah. Obviously, we understand there's complexity in that. Yeah. Understanding that it's about a cultural transformation, going from whatever culture, your worldview, whatever you had, into a way of doing kingdom, thinking like God thinks. Yeah. And the third thing is that it's a covenant. It's others-centered. It's not self-centered. It leads us into the gospel message, because when you look at the gospel message that I grew up with in the West of, are you confident in your heart that if you die tonight you go to heaven or hell? Well, straight away, that's not an invitation into a covenantal relationship with my God. No. That's an invitation for a self-centered, saying, I don't want to go to hell. Yeah. I want to go to heaven. So contractually, I enter into arrangement. So now what have I done? I've entered into arrangement that I'm going to go to heaven and not go to hell. So I've got a bunch of things I have to do. I have to go to church, I have to do this, I have to tithe, I have to do whatever. But I haven't made the other things important. I don't think about free choice in the matter in the same way. I'm certainly not even entertaining cultural transformation. No. And I'm definitely not thinking covenantally. All the things that are eroded. So now I come into this, and for me as a church leader, I mean, I've done church leadership in various forms for decades. It's frustrating, because you're thinking, what is going on? Why can't people just grab a hold of the king of their life, the lover of their life, and live? Because it didn't suit them, because today the sun was shining and we're going to the beach, or it didn't suit them to make a meal, or because you've realized that you've sold them a construct about who God is and how kingdom works that's completely different. And
it's so shallow.
It's so shallow.
And actually powerless to change their heart.
Powerless to change their heart, exactly right.
Powerless to change their heart, and it actually reinforces the mask thing that we've been talking about.
Yeah, I go to church, I've got my church mask on. I go to business, I've got my business mask on as I don't belong. You know, I don't want to be seen as a nerd or do good. Anyway, so
That's great. Okay, well, I think that's been a great chat, Gary. Thanks for that. And guys, check out that chapter. Go back and have a bit of a look, and ask yourself some questions like, are you like where in your life are you being covenantal? Where are you being contractual? And what would it look like to begin to change that? How can you begin to be a little bit other-centered? All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, James. Bless you guys.
Thank you, and well done on making it to the end of this podcast. This book and these podcasts really are conversation starters, so we would love to encourage you to continue the conversation. Here's a couple of ways you can do that. Number one, download your free copy of Building the Church as a Family at friendsfirst.com.au. That's right, completely free at friendsfirst.com.au. The second way, check out the conversation starters in the show notes. Maybe you can go over there with a friend, your spouse, or your home group. And number three, we're going to be uploading an episode for every chapter in the book. So why not like and subscribe so you don't miss out? Okay, that's it for this week. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll meet you again on the next episode.